I remember every Sunday my dad would take us for a drive after church. We'd go take a drive around the island and visit some friends of theirs and get a treat. And by the time we got home, we were all knocked out in the car. And my dad had to carry us all into the house. Another good memory that I have of my dad is that he worked so hard. He worked 2-3 jobs sometimes just to put food on the table. And he always found time to play with us. And although as tired as he was, he never said no as far as playing with us. He always took the time to play with us. And as far as Grandma is concerned, Grandma was a great baker and cook. And I remember on Thanksgiving, when she would prepare food for Thanksgiving, I was the only child up with her. Watching her cook, I would sit at the kitchen table and she would be busy just cooking. She was a great cook. So those are some of my childhood memories that I have my parents.
One of the things that I remember about Grandpa is I don't think there was ever a time in my life where I didn't feel loved by him. At every stage in my life, he'd always tell me how beautiful I was, even when I knew I wasn't. But he always, and I believe all my sisters feel the same way, that he always made sure that we knew that we loved him. He was a hard worker. He served in the Marine Corps for 21 years. And then, I don't believe it was reserved, but he didn't actually retire completely from the Marine Corps until 1971. And it was always fun. We would always sit around the table. I always thought it was fun. I don't know about my other siblings, but Grandpa would sit around and tell his war stories about different things that happened to him while he served in the military. And he joined the church, I remember, when I was just a young girl. And he always had struggled. He had challenges with the word of wisdom. But I remember one time when we lived on 1200 Chiquapin Street in Carlsbad, I remember my parents decided to go to temple prep classes. And I know my dad was struggling with the word of wisdom, and I remember him telling us that he prayed for Heavenly Father to give him the strength to overcome his challenges with the word of wisdom so that he could take us all to the temple. We could be sealed as a family. I had older brothers and sisters that were no longer at home, but Stephen and Steph and me and Janice were the children at home during this particular time. And I remember my parents every week would go to Escondido, I believe it was a Tuesday night, to temple prep class at the Stake Center in Escondido, California. And eventually we were able to attend the temple. And I remember that when our family went to the temple, vaguely, but I just remember my parents preparing themselves to take us, and my dad was able to overcome his challenges with the with the word of wisdom, and he promised the Lord that if he would help Dad overcome this, that he would never stop going to church, no matter what. And I do know that Grandpa, or my dad, fulfilled that promise to the Lord till he died. That was a good memory of him with me. My mother, we lived in this little, we always called it the shack, but just like all of you have a memory of 843 Camellia Place being your favorite home ever, that little shack on Chinkopin, is that how you say it? Street was our favorite home. And we had such wonderful memories there. My mother, I remembered one time Grandma was riding a bike, and she got on this bike and went up the hill of Chinkopin, and then was coming down and was trying to make a turn into our driveway, and instead of making the turn, she rode the bicycle up a tree, up a oleander bush, and she fell backwards, and I remember us all standing around her because we thought she had died. She just rode this bicycle up the tree or the bush and fell back on her back, and she was just laying there. And I remember Stephen, Stephen, me, and Janice were just standing there looking at her, and then all of a sudden she just started laughing. And we go, "Mom, are you okay?" So that was a memory. And then, Grandma and me, we don't like cats, but I remember she always had dogs around, but we did have this one cat. It was a calico, and it was a female, and we called her Goldie. And she always had litters, but Grandma would always take care of this cat. And this cat would just watch us children like it was a guard dog, and it was very loving to us. But I remember that's the only cat ever in our whole life with Grandma that she allowed us around, have a cat around. I remember Grandma always was a great cook. She always made things special for us. We were never able to do much like other people we knew, go on vacations and things like that, but she would build a little campfire in the back of our yard, and she'd make cocoa and peanut butter on toast, or she'd make us graham crackers and cream cheese frosting sandwiches we thought were so cute. But as we grew up, that's how I learned to cook. Grandma never talked. I just had to stand there and stir the pot, and that's how I watched her. I watched her, and I learned how to cook from her, and she could make something from nothing. And so I'm really grateful that I learned those things from her. She always made our birthdays. She made every holiday special with what she was able to do. We never really had a Christmas till the night before. And Dad would, Grandpa would save all of his post office gift cards from all the his patrons who he delivered mail to, and they would give him monies throughout the month, and he would save it for Christmas Eve. And the next morning we'd go to breakfast somewhere, and he always had a limited budget, so he would always say, "This is how much you get to spend," but we could choose what we wanted. And he was always happy to do that. And Grandma I kind of think a lot of times, she just kind of made everything work, just like how we've made everything work in our family. And one of the most memorable things about Grandma, both Grandma and Grandpa were so involved in the church and had many callings, but Grandma never talked much. But I remember when I was leaving on my mission, she got up and spoke at my farewell. That's the first time I heard my mother speak, or give a talk. And Grandma only had like a 6th grade education, but she was a self-educated woman. She taught herself everything she knew. And I just remember thinking, wow, she's a wonderful speaker. I never heard my mother speak before. And I remember that about her. And was so proud that she was my mother. And the things that she said and spoke of and testified of. I have a lot more memories that I have to think, so I'll stop thinking.